we're just going to go and take a look at your runes masteries. So you're running Transcendent Scorch, you're running Cheap Shot, you're playing versus what is, I'm assuming, a Riven mid lane.
Yep.
So we run a pregame checklist. The whole point of a pregame checklist is to maintain focus, because if you're not paying attention to these details, you're not forcing yourself to focus on like what is necessary to play. So we gather information, we interpret it, and then we apply it. If you don't force yourself to gather this information, you just won't have anything to work with. So just by looking at this matchup level 1, I already know that Riven is melee. And then what is her keystone?
Hers? Oh,
Yes.
Conqueror.
And what is the ideal playstyle for Conqueror?
Like a more extended fight, like she wants to build it up and then start doing extra damage and healing off you and all that stuff.
Exactly. So the longer the fight goes on, the better. It's extended fighting keystone. Now, you have Electrocute, which is about short, precise trades. So just off of our keystones, we know that we have an advantage and that we can play through our strength. And if we want to deny where she's strong, what would we do?
Don't extend trades. Don't let her create a situation where she can build up the keystone and then just beat our ass.
Exactly. So just by looking at that, you're forcing yourself to play around that information. And then we look at the summer spells, Flash Ignite. Oftentimes I will die to people who run Exhaust or Barrier just because I don't look at it until it's too late. So by looking at all these things in the very first 30 seconds of the game, you're getting a grasp of what you need to do to succeed. And then we also take a look at like what is relevant to our matchup. So we already identified that this is melee, but what skills do we have to play around? So for Riven,
you mean like what are her skills just in general, or like how is she going to go in on me?
It is basically her priority skills. So some champions are unique and that's all 3 skills. So Riven's one of those because you have to play around the third Q, which is the major knockup. You have to play around the W, which is the micro stun, and then you have to play around the E, which can be used to dodge your skills. So just because it's Riven, we have to pay attention to all 3 of these things because her Q requires her to build up 3 stacks before she gets that third one. So it's not something that you can just ignore, just kind of like Yone Yassuo watching their tracker. And then for her, she has to play around your passive, and she has to play around your E, which are your major things. Now, because she's melee, we would also include our W, because if she wants to engage into us and we have shield up, she can't play the game because it's like a guaranteed skill shot if it's a melee range.
Yep.
So oftentimes in melee matchups, we rely a little bit more on autos because every time that she E's or Q3s, you're getting a Doom and Gloom proc for free. Now, admittedly, I haven't played versus a Riven mid lane in a long time, so hopefully this matchup goes as well as I would expect it.
Yeah.
But the main thing here is you've got C-Pot, she's got Longsword, 3 potions, so she has 360 health and resources, and you have 300. So she's got a slight advantage, and her itemization is a little bit better just because you're not progressing your main build since you're going only resource stats. That's the main issue with corrupting. But this does mean that you will do the most damage you could possibly do in like auto trades. That is like the main idea behind going C-Pot.
It's also going to be weird because I realized it was Riven and I took W because I figured she was gonna try to do Riven things to me, potentially at level 1 even. Like if she gets her dash and jumps on me, but
so this is technically incorrect just because you're not playing through your advantage, which is that you have a range advantage.
Yeah.
And I'll show you some macro concepts that can help you with that.
Yeah, so, she fell for it, but that's because she's also bad.
True.
Basically.
So it's pretty much always good to invade level 1 if you're stronger, because you're basically creating a 50-50 scenario where you either get first blood or you get a ward for free. So definitely recommend invading if your team is stronger level 1, and you can see that they're getting an advantage out of this.
Yeah, I would say she got an advantage out of this.
Yep. So in a scenario like this, there's really not much you can do. The best thing that you can do is you can exchange vision, so you could go up here and you could place a ward on their red or their raptors. I'd recommend the red buff. And that way you're making sure that you're getting like equal information. Because what happens if your jungler just goes blue and we don't know if they're doing buff or buff?
And I do remember thinking about it. I'm like, I don't really know. I was like, well, where's Rengar? Which side is the gank coming from? I'm like, well, I don't actually know because he could do either. So I should have known that for sure.
So this gives you just a little bit more control on how the game progresses.
Yep.
Now, it's really awkward because if people start your red buff like this, they can basically gank you mid lane at level 2 while pathing up towards their red buff because they'll cross map through middle. Especially if they're playing Kindred or Shaco, that will happen 100% of the time that they start your red buff. And that's something to consider. Now, this game is wacky because, again, we started W, which means that we don't have ease of access to our major damage combo. So the reason why W is really good is because it is a guaranteed skill shot at melee range. They can't dodge it if they're melee. But the cost of it is the damage amount's kind of low, the shield amount's kind of low, the cooldown's very long.
No range, yeah.
So not as much range, and then E is what you use to apply your Gloom, which is your passive. So this gives you a really way of using auto to get electrocute proc, but also get Gloom damage, which helps you reset your fear faster, which then gives you more protection. So on average, when you do an auto combo against most champions in mid lane at level 1 with electrocute, you're basically getting a 200 damage trade no matter what. Now, you can technically auto W auto, and you're still going to get a bit of damage, but you have bigger window of vulnerability as a result of that. Now, the way wave level 1 works, this is wave 1, is it is coded where all these minions right here are going to trade autos equally and then die at the same time. So the reason why this is important is because if I want to create a situation where I can fuck the Riven up, I gotta make sure I don't have to kill a minion at the same time. Because if I'm forced to right-click a minion, can I right-click the Riven? No, because I have to kill the minion. So what we like to do on wave 1, if we're playing aggressively for level 2, if we're trying to get an advantage, is we hit one of these minions a couple times just to make sure that they die at different times. This is called desyncing. So desyncing is creating a situation where the timers are no longer equal. So now it becomes turn-based. It's like an RPG, an MMO really. It's my turn, and that's her turn, and it's my turn. So by creating this situation, it's very easy to tell when you can play aggressively or when you should play defensively because it's kind of interpreted that way. So we're hitting all the minions equally. Our goal really is to make sure that we can hit her when she walks up because, again, do we have a range advantage?
Yes.
We are, because we're range versus melee. So this concept here, we make a rope between us. This is called tethering. Tethering is basically gauging distance based on your effective range. So if you need a visual example, I'll go ahead and show you right now. So this is called map.rifkit.net, and you'll basically see that there's a blue circle around each character, and this is supposed to show your effective range. So the idea is that you constantly have to position around the idea of what they could hit you at max range, but for Riven, her maximum range would be something like this. Whereas your effective range with E would be something like this. You see how big of a difference that is in terms of range?
Yeah.
So
it's
you
just
have the
dash W is basically like...
Yeah, and then once she gets level 3, you still win because you have an easier time of disabling it. And that's like the Pogger thing. But the idea here is that your effective range is based on where you're standing, right? Because you can only cast as far as where you're standing from. So if I update my positioning right here, that's my effective range. So she has to move from me to get to the minions, or she has to leave to get to safety. But right now, I'm standing here, which means that my effective range is something like this. Now, that's only assuming that I start E, right? Because right now, my effective range is something more like this, because I started W. So if I want to play aggressively to defend this minion, I now have to update my positioning so that I'm standing close enough to actually apply pressure. I want to force her to trade health in exchange for minions. And the idea behind this, what we talked about during Runes and Itemization, is that we are trading with a purpose. We are trading with the intention of creating a kill window. If I am trading without purpose or without a reason of why I'm doing it, I might just fuck up and kill myself because I don't know what I'm doing. But if I have a reason behind my decisions and I'm playing towards that purpose, I'm going to be mindful about what I'm creating for myself. And you're going to see here that you probably don't punish the Riven as much as you could, because right now, the way that this would work is this is another concept called minion sequencing. It's basically just order of operations for which minion dies. It's like math, right? PEMDAS. You do parentheses first and then what addition, whatever. I don't fucking remember. But this is order of operations, but for minions. So this red minion dies first. I have to make sure that I last hit it. And then you're waiting for the next thing to happen, which would be either red minion or blue minion dying. So if the blue minion dies next, that means I want to defend it, right? Because I'm not doing anything else until it dies. So 1, 2, 3, I play aggressively, I kill this minion, and then I defend the second minion, and then when the third minion's about to die, I focus on killing the third minion. And that's what it means to be taking turns, right? Like an MMO RPG. So we watch this.
I think I fuck up.
But you see how she takes these minions for free?
Yeah.
So you get an auto, and then you make space, but what's the next minion to die?
That blue one there.
That blue one. So you're making space here, she's allowed to take this for free. And again, the reason why this matters is because for melee champions, the whole point is that they're weakest from level 1 through 3, because they don't have access to all their skills yet. That is what makes them so weak, is that they can't get through your range without griefing. So if I win level 1 through 2 and I take a lot of their health, that is progressive, it is momentum. You are carrying that over from level 1 to level 2 to level 3, and that's what allows you to completely shaft these lanes. Because if they recall without 750 gold, they can't buy serrated Erk, and then their lane is just really fucking weak. But when they're allowed to play the game and hit level 3, they're getting access to all their skills, and if they get to level 3 with all their potions, you're fucked. Now, this is silver, this is gold, you'll be given opportunities where you can play the game and just win through that anyways, but the idea is that you want to create a situation where you can succeed every single time, and against melees, the best way to do that is when you're infinitesimally stronger. So if we walk away here, you're basically denying yourself your win con. Because again, the way that this would work is this minion dies, this blue one. So our goal is to kill this red minion, and then what comes after that?
Defend the blue caster creep, because she's going to try to cast it, and then try to CS the other red one.
Exactly. So just by knowing what is coming progressively, I now have a game plan. So this one concept, minion sequencing, is giving me focus because I'm forcing myself to pay attention to what is happening now and what is happening soon. Because the idea is that if you can identify a scenario where you have a favorable trade and you're building towards it, you can capitalize on it. Because oftentimes what happens for you silver gold players is you hyperfixate on the thing in front of you, and then you have to reset and then pay attention to the next thing without thinking of it in like a linear progression. So it's one thing at a time instead of having it already chained together to begin with. Like being proactive enough to know what comes next. Because again, should she ever be allowed to take these minions without trading hell for it as a melee champion? No. So if I know that this is the way things go, red minion then blue minion, I would make sure I can kill this minion safely. And the reason why this is so easy in a range versus melee matchup is because do I have to worry about my positioning at all right now?
I mean, not really. She has no way of getting on you without just like jumping into a crowd of minions and dying.
Exactly. So against melee versus range, it's so easy for you, but what happens if it's range versus ranged? Now you have to actually consider effective range, right? You have to consider if they can punish you or not. So when I go for this red minion versus a ranged champion, I have to make sure that I'm farming it from a safe distance if there was somebody standing right here. But because it's melee, I can play my position aggressively, and I can farm this, and not worry about being punished, and I can still set up for this next minion. That's like the main difference between melee versus ranged, is how you're posturing. It doesn't matter as much. You can play much more loosely, much more freely. Now, there is still a Rengar behind us, and that's something that we have to consider. But it is, again, another melee with no dashes. You could literally just outrun it. But here, we take a look at this, and again, we go back to our trading windows, our patterns. You've probably seen this in a few videos, but it's 1, 2, 3. I'm not going to write it out because it's going to take me forever to do so with a pen. But number 1 is positioning. Number 2 is last hit windows. And then number 3 is cooldowns. So this is linear because in order to do this, you have to start with number 1, which is positioning. Because again, if I'm too far away, can I punish Riven if she makes a mistake?
Of course, obviously not.
Obviously not. And if I'm too close and I make a mistake, can she punish me?
Severely.
Yeah, so it's a dual-sorted thing. You have to be considering this both defensively but also offensively. And that's how we use effective range, right? I had to position in a way that allows me to play aggressively or defensively based on when I'm stronger. So this rope would get shorter when I'm stronger, and it would get wider when I'm weaker. And at the very focal point of this, the very middle of this, is the minions. That is what we're fighting over. The entire point of laning phase is that we're fighting over minions, because minions are gold and experience. So we use the rope.
Bulldogs 6,993 tipped $50.
Sorry, I just got tipped in the middle of this. Somebody paying for a session tomorrow. But We see that the minions are the focal point of it, and that means that this rope usually originates with one of these minions as the middle, right?
Yes.
So positioning both offensive and defensively, and the idea here is if it takes me 0.1 seconds to get in range to punish somebody, that's a lot better than being 1 second away, right? Because you only have a matter of seconds to take advantage of these windows.
Right, because she's gonna walk away. Like, yeah.
Yeah, so you gotta make sure that you're close enough, but you're towing the line, because if I am also 0.1 seconds away from being able to react to that, that means I could also get aggressed on, right? They could punish me if they get close enough. So because you're towing the line, in order to be close enough to react instantly, you have to make sure that you're also able to get away instantly. So it's about being as close as possible without being in immediate danger on both sides. And then the next step is last hit windows. That's number 2. Every single time a minion is about to die, you have to be thinking, am I stronger in this window? Am I weaker? Can I punish them, or should I just farm safely? So I farm this minion because, again, I'm safe. There's nothing she can do to me. And then what's the next minion on this list that dies?
The little blue caster on the far right.
Okay, so progressively, I would kill this minion, and then I would defend the blue one, right?
Behind her name, but yeah.
It's not taking any damage, but you're right that this is the correct one, right?
Okay.
So I kill the red minion safely, because, again, range versus melee, and then I defend the second one, right? But the thing is, it's all about identification, because if I do not recognize this window as a possibility, will I play around it?
No.
If I'm not in a position to punish it, does it matter that's happening?
Would not.
Not really. So you got to make sure that you can identify these things, but also be in a position to punish them. It's only when you identify these things that you can make sure that you're close enough when it matters. Because again, is she allowed to farm this minion for free?
Yep.
Exactly. So you're equal CS. You took a really aggressive item. You've got aggressive runes. But you haven't used a single fear combo. You haven't used electrocute. Partially this is because we started W.
I inted myself trying to be smart.
Yeah. And then E's a lot easier to land because it's wide. It's very wide. So when I throw E, it covers a giant circle. This is a lot easier to land than Q, which is basically just a straight rocket. Now, against champions that dash into you, Q does really well because you can use it to disrupt the dash like LeBlanc. But we're not Koreans. Very much so we need to rely on E because we are not very good. Even me included.
Fair enough.
It's just the easiest way to land your combo and guarantee it. So here, she's going to go for this blue minion. Is this considered suicidal from her?
Damn near.
Pretty much, because you're positioned in a way that allows you to defend it. She's going into your effective range, and then you just trade. So if she tries to jump into you, you disable it with fear. And no matter what happens, you won this trade, right?
Yep.
So here, you're in a safe position, so if you want, you can continue autoing her, because again, she still is in effective range. But this is the very first trade that we made in this lane, and you can see how much of a difference it made. You did 200 damage here. Every single one of these potions is 120, so when you burn these 3 potions, can she heal back from your damage?
No, it's like Riven's biggest weakness.
Exactly, so if they don't start D-Shield, and you don't take their resources away from them, when you can, because again, you're stronger level 1 through 3 every single time in melee matchups, you're basically allowing them to get away with scaling. So good auto there. You farm your minions safely, and you see that this one dies next, right? So it doesn't matter that you don't have skills, because what could we do here instead of using a skill?
Just auto her.
Just auto her. You can auto her. It's completely fine. Very good. But again, every time we look at these, you can see these possibilities in real time because you know what you're looking for now, right?
Yep. Yeah, I wasn't looking for it. I was thinking like, oh, I gotta hit level 3. I should have leveled my E. But
and that's kind of what's so crazy of League, right? Is nobody teaches you how to play. It's all very intuitive based. You basically learn from experience. But these are the very fundamentals of League of Legends. And until you apply it to your gameplay, every game kind of seems like you're kind of lost because you don't know what you're working towards or you don't know what comes next. But when we start applying this, every decision you make feels purposeful. You feel good about playing because you know what you're working towards. So it's very important that we take this and we apply it. Because again, you can look at this and you know exactly what you could be doing as a result of what we covered. All these possibilities, right? Because again, this minion dies. And if you had E, you could play a little bit more aggressively on this, but you can still look for an auto. You can still posture up, because if I stand on it, I can just Q her if she tries to right-click it. But again, she gets it for free.
But I just kind of walked away.
Yeah, and it's fine. It's something that you'll learn and you'll apply, and this will be one of your fastest tickets to getting better. Because again, every single time that somebody right-clicks a minion, they have to do something called a wind-up animation. And if they move before the wind-up animation is done, it cancels the auto, right? So as a result of this, you can basically assume that if somebody right-clicks a minion in front of you, for that first half second, they are rooted. So when I talk about being 0.1 seconds away, I mean that you need to be close enough to where they are rooted, you can cast a skill, and it will land 80 to 100% of the time. And the result of this is, because you land your skill so consistently, are you wasting mana? No, because you're landing your skill shots. And that's the issue that we have on Vex, is that a lot of you guys throw out skills that will not land, and then you run out of mana and you can't play the game.
The spam E, hope I hit you and land my electrocute, yeah.
And it's equally as bad because how long is the cooldown on your fear?
25.
So every time that we miss our fear, or our E, we're basically losing tempo from anywhere from 13 seconds to 25 seconds. But if we land every single one of them, we're recycling our fear off the Gloom proc, and we're getting damage, and then that forces them to use resources, and that allows you to create a kill window. So it's really, really important that you're not throwing skill shots at max range hoping to God it lands, but you're waiting for them to give you a guaranteed opportunity. You can still throw max range ones, but you want to make sure that when you throw them, they're usually going to land.
Yeah, this is a weird game, but under normal circumstances, I would definitely be looking to land as they go to CS, right? Like,
yeah.
But I kind of...
So here, I would pretty much always do W because there's no travel time on W. It's instant. So if you W first, it guarantees your Q lands. You could do the other way around, but if she like sidesteps a Q, it's kind of awkward, right?
I think I had been... I'm trying to remember. I think I thought it wasn't up, and it came up as she ran at me, and I didn't realize it. And I just kind of was like, cute.
Okay.
I'm not 100% on that, but yes, understood.
You're probably right.
Okay, yeah.
You are right. Sorry, my bad.
No, I understand, like, the principle of what you're saying. Yeah, it would be... I hit her, but, like, W would have been better because it just guarantees it.
If you had it, but you're right. The queuing there is correct, and then you got a really good trade because you got a lot of autos in. And this is exactly what you want, right? Because you keep forcing her to use potions, and this is just because you're trading efficiently, and you haven't really used anything. Now again, C-pot's basically meaningless here because you didn't use it correctly, so if you had D-ring, you would be getting infinitely more value.
So she didn't get burned, yeah.
Yeah. So that's why C-pot's a little bit harder to use, is because even if you use it in a perfect use case, on average, you're not using it correctly, so... D-ring is definitely better for the average player. And even then, C-pot is just like so situationally niche that I wouldn't run it anyways unless you were like perfect with it. But here, this is kind of the issue, is that because we're slow pushing into them, this is a very telegraphed lane movement, which means that you are very vulnerable right now, right? You're very easy to
get.
gank.
If Rengar was better, like if he wasn't silver, we'd have a problem.
Yeah, and usually the first time you get ganked is anywhere as soon as 220. This is what you'd get ganked on average for a 3 camp. For a 3 camp, like who's doing a cross map, it would be around 240. And then for anything that is 5 or 6 camps, it would pretty much be 3 minutes and after. So when I say 3, 5, 6, I basically mean how many jungle camps they're doing before they gank. And you can kind of tell what kind of champion will do a 5 or 6 because they just want to hit level 6, whereas other champions just want to gank as fast as possible, like Kindred, Jarvan, Shaco. Those would all be 3 camps.
Whereas like a Kayn is not gonna...
Probably
gonna wait. He's probably not gonna be done by 3, and he's gonna barely get to crab at 3:15. And yeah.
Yeah, they're gonna do 5, 6 camp. They can still gank you at 3. It's just not as efficient for them. Is the issue. Now with the preseason, crabs now spawn at 3:30. So that's something to remember, is that they spawn at 3:30. So your wave management can change depending on that. But if we are gonna do a slow push like this, we need to know where the jungler starts. So we know that Rengar's bottom, because he started on our red. So option-wise, before I crash this wave, I could drop a ward here to protect me from a flank. Or I could drop a ward on this ramp to make sure that I'm protected from this gank. Because if this is a telegraph movement and somebody is expecting to gank me on this push, because I'm overextended, I gotta make sure I put my vision down before I crash this wave. So that's just something to think about. Now, the only reason why this is so awkward is because he's doing a cross map after starting your red. Because if Rengar just started blue buff, he would just be up here and you drop this ward and you'd be fine. Because how would he gank you, right?
Right.
With this ward, he wouldn't be able to.
Right, because he's Rengar, he's going to walk to the bush because that's what he does, and he's going to walk right over it on his way to the bush, and I'm going to leave.
Pretty much. Also because he's melee and can't dash walls, he just has to go for the choke. So when you put choke wards against jungles, it's just very, very efficient. If you watch me play games, you'll see me do like hard level 2 pushes, and I'll drop a ward on Raptors just to see if they're on the area. But this ward is almost always super consistent because it just denies this entire choke. So if they can't go through here, and they have to be on top side to clear these camps, they just can't gank mid until after crab. Now, here, this is perfect, right? You wait for her to right-click the cannon, you throw out your E. Now, unfortunately, we didn't have fear there, so we couldn't get a perfect combo. But you see you're doing a very good job of being oppressive. You're doing a fantastic job. You burn all 3 potions. So even though we didn't have a super amazing start, you've pulled through, you've had some really smart trades, and although she is allowed to be equal CS, she's technically up on CS on you right now. Had we played a little bit more efficiently, she wouldn't have this gold to work with. Because right now she goes back, because she have enough for a serrated Dirk.
Well, she got first blood.
She did get first blood.
She actually comes back with a free pickaxe, and I was very pissed about it. But
it did be like that.
Yeah, like, I hate, like, I've heard a million low elo players be like, "Oh, my team sucks, my team sucks, my team sucks," and it's like, yeah, but if you didn't suck, the other team sucks too. So, like, you are where you belong. You know what I mean? Like, it's not. Yeah. I'm not like that.
We look here and we see the amount of opportunities being given.
Yeah, but like this game, like what eventually happens, there is at one point where you're gonna see where because I win the lane, even I am winning the lane until I int, because I int my fear at a bad time and she just like full all ins me. You know, she has the advantage of like having extra items even though she's not performing well in lane because of that kill. And I think the like in lane, yeah, but like the rest of the way this game goes, this was one of those games where it's like maybe if I was challenger I could have carried this game. But
I mean, to be fair, you would have already won this lane had you been playing better on this
Windows.
Windows.
Had I been playing better on.
So it is always a progressive momentum thing. It does suck that she does get access to more items and that she does kill you. But you see all of these windows where you could have made improvements or you could have played better. 100%, and those are all opportunities for you to learn from.
So, mid-Riven, if she doesn't get that first blood, mid-Riven is an int. Like, if I hadn't leveled W, I would have just absolutely annihilated her. And I mean,
those are some of your mistakes, technically, though.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's focus up here real quick.
No, absolutely.
So we know for a fact that she has to trade health to kill these minions. So that's like the whole reason why we do slow pushes, is you force them to trade a bunch of health at one time. So right now, this is where we look to auto on every minion or trade HP on every single minion. So if she walks up here and you allow her to farm here, this is really bad, right?
I was afraid of getting ganked.
But that's something you could have easily solved by placing a ward, right? So you see now,
I did not have vision.
Your combo at level 4 does about 397, not including Ignite, and then not including reses or anything. But right now, is she dead on your screen with 300 health? Yep. If you full combo, yes. So you 100%, you literally could have just killed her right here. You could have WEQ'd into Ignite, and if she walks away, you get Doom and Gloom, auto, she dies. So you walking away here is partially because you did not get the proper setup.
Yep.
And also because you just didn't identify this window. So you're over-respecting the Rengar. She's allowed to farm these minions. You are technically down in CS right now. And I'd say that this is all really just a progressive thing. So we had a lot of opportunities that could have changed the way this game went. And this is one of them. Because you could have killed her here. You could have got your lead back. And even though you're afraid of playing for a gank, you still haven't placed that ward, right? At any given moment, when you push that wave in, that is called a roam timer, recall timer, is you have nothing to do during that period of time, right? Because you're not hitting tower, you're not punishing her. What could we have done instead? We could have gone place a ward, we could have done...
ward.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then that would have gave you the confidence to play aggressively, right?
Yeah. No, it was like an information lack, because I thought about it, I'm like, well, where is Rengar? And I'm like, well, I don't freaking know. because I should have identified like, oh well, obviously he invaded bot, so he probably went to blue, But I was just like, it just tripped me out, and I was like, I don't know. I didn't think about putting down a ward, and that was.
And it's about thinking ahead, right? It's about being proactive.
Probably our last chance to turn the game based on how the rest of the game went. Like, so yeah, I should have just thought to ward, and then I could have punished her harder.
It's okay, because now we learned that lesson, right? Looking at it in hindsight, 2020. And we're still giving opportunities. Like, she is still in kill range. Just keep in mind that if she makes a mistake, you can still punish this. The thing is, she has effective HP from the shield, so technically she's 400, but she's 500. Because she can mitigate 100 damage here. But if she walks up here and you get a proper trade window, you can force her to lose CS. So going melee here is fucking brilliant. So I don't know if this is intentional, but basically allowing her to go melee range and then get your guaranteed combo, you should win here off of an EQ Ignite. Because if I pop Ignite, I get the Doom and Gloom proc. If she flashes, you can flash auto again. So here, if you had autoed... I
didn't flash any time.
You technically in range to auto, you just didn't cast it, because it would follow the flash. But other than that, you played that extremely well. It's unfortunate that there's a minor execution error, but what do we go from there? What happens now?
I mean, you punish her for, she has to back, so you just... I mean, I tried to shove it out to punish her for basically having to leave.
Yep, so that's correct. So you need to go spend your money, so you need to recall. So by pushing this wave, you're getting another 180 gold. So that would be the difference between having Amptome, Dark Seal, or Boots Dark Seal refillable. You could technically let this wave slow push into you because it's 9 minions versus 7. So if you wanted to, you could let it freeze on you. But you always push here because you just want the better recall. So you should hard push this and force her to lose something. Now, for her, this isn't the worst timing because cannons absorb 8 tower shots. So the way this works is in order to punish her, I have to kill a 1000 health cannon. That takes a lot of damage, right? So that slows down the push, and then when my cannon hits tower, it has to take 8 tower shots before she loses anything. So she gets a really ideal reset here because it is cannon wave. You get some help here. And kind of the issue here that I'm seeing is that you're very, very slow. So the whole point is the moment you recognize this window, the whole point that it comes down to is tempo. So tempo is about the speed at which you carry out a task for momentum purposes, or if you're slowing something down intentionally. But in order to punish her really fast, what do we need to do? We need to push fast as well.
As quickly as possible, yeah.
So when we're sitting on skills, we're slowing down our clear because, again, every time that you cast your skill, it resets, right? So when I wait 2 seconds to Q or I wait to E, I'm waiting even longer on the cooldowns.
The Echo, I didn't expect him to throw that, and I thought he, I thought he was, inting me, so I was, pinging him, what the fuck? I don't know, but he was trying to help. So that was why I just kind of got, off tilt for a second there.
Yeah, and it would have been fine to help you push, because, again, she'd lose something faster. And you see that you have 3 skills available, you see that you could push this faster, and then that way you get your recall off faster. And it's equally as valuable because if I recall faster, I get on the map faster. So it's all connected in that capacity.
I didn't recognize it quick enough, and I fucking missed a cannon.
Yeah, it's unlucky because that makes a difference on your recall, right?
Yep.
So we go back, and come back to lane. You opt for Boots Dark Seal. This is probably the best you could have done in this situation. It's also just a really good recall because against melees, you get that extra spacing. And then the wave slow pushes back to you because you crashed it. So if you had a jungler that you were in comms with, you would just gank them on this window and it would be pretty free. So what we do from here is that you want to maintain this line. This line here represents safety because can Rengar gank you under tower? Or sorry, Echo. It's very hard. They can still find a WE max range, but this is significantly harder to gank than up here.
Yeah, very much because he has to ult and it Rengar ults, so it's okay, I'll take 3 steps backwards.
And this is also easier for your Rengar to gank because she's overextended now. So here, there's a lot of minions.
My Echo and his Rengar. Yeah,
sorry, fuck, I'm confusing it.
Oh no, you're okay. I got you.
Yeah.
Rengar, you want to try to freeze it and delay and make her overextended as long as possible.
Exactly. And to do this, we need to make sure that she's not able to crash this wave. So we have to kill some of these minions to slow down the push. Because where's the next minion wave? It's not alive
just
yet,
about
right?
to spawn. Yeah.
So I can't let her push this in, so I have to slow this down. I have to kill these minions.
Yeah, I think I was too slow to trim the wave here, if I remember.
And you have to leave here to help your jungler, so it's a little bit awkward on that.
And yeah, and she breaks it while I walk away.
Well, actually, no, you can still hold it.
I think
So
I
fortunately.
don't. I think I just like fuck it up.
Okay. So here, you could technically just bring the wave down. So you could just walk it down so that it enters tower range. As long as you do that, she can't walk up safely without getting free comboed. And looks like you're fine. So as long as you don't randomly right-click here, you can maintain this line as long as you want with +4.
Okay.
Now, because we're killing some of these minions and we're autoing, we're slowly pushing it back towards her, and it is making it a little bit easier for her. Now, the good news is, again, she can't play aggressively on you because you're under tower. If she tries to EQ onto you, she takes tower shots. If she makes a mistake and she E's forward, how much space is there between her and tower?
The whole lane.
The whole lane. So this is a really good setup for you because you want to take aggressive trades here. And then when you get to your ults, you can start looking for all-in plays. So we know that this minion dies next, this blue one. What should you be thinking on this opportunity?
Defend the blue minion.
Exactly.
Kill it
So-
and just kill her.
This is all possible because I did the same thing of looking at this minion and thinking to myself, what comes next? So just by identifying this, am I guaranteeing that I get like a 400 damage trade if I land it?
Yep.
Pretty much. So just by operating there, I can follow up on this.
Just use E, dashed in, and yeah.
And you did a great trade. So you took 300 damage. Well, you took 400, but you got mitigated by the E. And now we have no skills. So we can basically walk away here and wait for our skills to come back up, and we're basically untouchable. If I continue to walk forward here and trade, and I go melee range, and she gets damage back, it goes from being 300 for 0 to being something like 350 for like maybe 150. Which one of these would you say is a better trade?
The one that's free.
The one that's free. So let's just go ahead and walk away here after this. Very good job. Wonderful. And because the lane is slow pushing now, this is where we have to consider, am I going to get ganked? So this wave guaranteed the push towards her, and this is where you have to drop a ward. How many wards do we have right now? We have 1. So we take a look at the map. She's on a roam timer right now, so she's missing. You ping it. Good job. And this is kind of the issue, is that a lot of you lower elo players feel compelled to follow. And in some scenarios that works, but if you don't have ultimate, I wouldn't really follow unless it's like guaranteed. Because if I hard push mid here, I can take the minion wave, I can take the plate, that's 300 gold, that's guaranteed. That's like a 100% play. Now, if I match this roam bottom, you know, there's a potential I get like 4 kills, like 1200 gold, whatever. Or more often than not, they'll just kill your bot lane and then you'll waste your time.
And you just waste a bunch of time.
So
But I think I don't follow them.
Yeah, so I like this. I like that you put the ward. You're getting that information so that you can safely push forward. Now, the major thing here is that you still don't have vision on this area, and we don't know where Rengar was last seen or Riven was last seen.
Yeah, I was still really scared of Rengar, but...
Yeah. But we have a general idea, so you wait, you get a little bit of information, and at this point, this is where you tempo fast. So you clear this wave fast, you force Riven to lose CS, so she goes to help Dragon, but how much is she losing here?
A full cannon wave.
A full cannon wave +1, so she's losing 300 gold, and you're gaining a wave, so this is a 450 gold swing in your favor, and if you take plate, that's another 175 or something like that now, because they buffed it. So this is a 600 gold swing in your favor just because she fucks up. And that's why mid lane is so OP if you just understand like when to fall or not, because you're just coming out on top here every single time. Now, it's really important we push this because we want her to lose as many minions as possible. So when you hard push a wave like this, when someone leaves, you're forcing a push or pull response because they have to come back or they lose it, right? So when I see people sit there and like wait for Riven to show on the map, they're letting them roam because they're not forcing her to come back.
Yeah,
that happens very often. Now, at least they punish after that, but you want to make sure that you're not letting them roam for free in the first place. And that's where a lot of people struggle on lower elos, is they allow them to get that wave crash and then leave without doing anything about it. Because if I have the wave push, can Riven leave in the first place? No. So if you find yourself moving to cat arenas or stuff like that, you just need to make sure you're playing your wave a little bit more aggressively in that capacity. Sure. So you get a lot of value here. You use this crash to go clear wards or get vision. That's a smart thing to do. Well done. And you could have potentially looked for a play top, or you could look for a play bottom off that crash. But overall, this is something that went very well for you. Now, you could also recall and spend your money if you want to, right?
Yeah.
So that's a possibility. You could stay if you want for another amp. But here, we can actually kill her.
Yeah, I think I do.
So if it were me, I would play Fog of War. I would wait here, and I would ult over the wall. This isn't bad either, right? It's not like the worst, but you definitely can kill her.
Oh wait, yeah, I realized, like, oh, she doesn't have 6. I can kill her. I'm pretty sure I realized that. So I ult her and kill her in like within the next 45 seconds. I don't.
Okay, well, I can see it on the time controls, but you see here, you have 2 options. You can cast it from Fog of War, and you can rely on her not having good enough reaction time to land it, and that's a kill. Now the thing is, if I throw the ult from here and I miss, that's 140 seconds where I don't have ult. So if I cast from here, the first she'd see my ult is right here. There's not very much time to react to it, right? She's got no flash. She just dies. Yeah. Now, if she uses her Q3 and E in front of you, you can also throw out an ult. But what happens if I land my fear first? Can she dodge my ult?
And she gets hit every single time.
She gets every single time. So I could flash W. I could look for max range E. But this is the most consistent way to play it. Because if I get the fear, it's a guaranteed play. So here, am I ranged to flash to W?
Yeah.
You are. So you could flash W right now. If you want to throw your E, what happens if she dodges it? You just lose out on the kill. Now, I throw E max range, she probably E's this side here, but I think you land it and you don't. So you could have thrown the E there, you could have looked for the flash W there. And she's going to come for this minion, and you know that she's coming for this minion, which is what's going to allow you to throw an E here if you want. Sometimes when I go for... I will ult on this if they go for a right click, instead of waiting for the E, because they're technically rooted. Now, she does have access to dodges, so she can still dodge it. It's risky depending on like what the matchup is. But here you see how if you postured better, you could have just looked for a flash W or an E. Because again, this is an opportunity that she's giving to you because she's silver, but we're not capitalizing on it, which is why she's allowed to do it and walk away. So you had a lot of chances here where you could have maybe been 3-0 by now.
Yep.
And we see here that you had a lot more consistent ults in the last 20 seconds. And it's really awesome that you landed this ultimate, but it's also not really the right process, right? It's just a lucky result.
Yeah.
So it's always important. We should approach the process is important. Result-wise, good results, but it doesn't mean that we played it well, technically. And then you get the kill here. Really well done. Fantastic. And how do we convert this? What do we do next?
He died, so we shove.
Okay, perfect. So we shove, we make sure she loses something, and then we go spend our money, right?
Yes.
Okay, and just to make sure we have enough time for our live spectate, we're just going to go ahead and skip out now.
Okay.
I think we've covered enough material that you can work on and get a lot of value.